I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 173. We're the week after the big old San Diego Comic-Con. First off, I'm back from vacation, obviously. So, this episode is actually current instead of the pre-taped version. So thank you for all of you watching that. And we got a lot of comments on that episode, so thank you very much. All right, so big stuff this week. Lots of great comics to read. A lot of new number ones, so we're going to dive right in. My pick of the week is not a new number one. It's actually number 3. Cyclops, number 3 by Greg Rucka and Russell Dauterman. And I don't know what else to say about this book. This is one of those things we get in a rut, not a rut, but there are books that we constantly recommend, and we watch the sales go lower and lower and lower. I don't know if it's because we're recommending them, or if it's because everyone is just overwhelmed by the sheer volume of titles that you can choose from every week and every month. But Cyclops is an outstanding book. Greg Rucka is a writer. He's a writer. I'm stating facts today. Pretty much everything that this guy writes is incredible. And to have him, Rucka is pretty much an indie guy. So to have him tackle a mainstream character like Cyclops...
He's an indie guy now.
He did Wonder Woman. He was always doing. He did Queen and Country. He did other stuff while he was doing Gotham Central or Wonder Woman or whatever else he was writing.
He was one of the writers on No Man's Land too, I think.
Yeah. Oh, he was. He signed my novelization. Yes. Anyway, so Cyclops is probably still available at your local comic book shop. I think we still have all 3 issues in stock. It's just a great story about a father and his teenage son reconnecting, gallivanting around the universe, and this one is just very emotional. There are some revelations made here, and it's a dad and his kid sitting down and talking. And while that may not appeal to everyone, it appeals to me as a father of a 14-year-old child. Can't even call him a child. He's taller than I am now. And I have 2 other kids that will eventually reach that age, and if you can remember, and some of you watching may be teenagers, but those of you that remember what it was like when you were a teenager and trying to interact with your parents, and those of you that are parents now and you're trying to interact with your teenagers, it can be awkward and uncomfortable and maddening, but this made everything feel good. This made everything kind of right, and it was a little emotional for me. So there were lots of good books to choose from this week, but this one was my pick because it resonated with me individually.
How great a problem is that to have? That you feel bad about talking about Cyclops over and over because it's so good you can't not talk about it.
I know.
It's great to have books like that.
People. Rucka is leaving the book. I don't know if it's a temporary sabbatical or if
I think he's leaving.
He's leaving because he has to go write some novels in addition to all of his creator-owned stuff. But somebody else is coming on board that I like, and I don't remember who it is. But for right now, the first 3 issues of Cyclops have been top-notch.
All right, next up, new number 1 from Vertigo. We've got Bodies. This is written by Cy Spencer with art by 4 people. Megan Hetrick, Dean Ormstrom, Tula Lotay, and Phil Winslett. And Lee Lawridge, possibly. Is Lawridge an inker? I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Josh is reading the book for the first time.
I'll read this book while we do this. No. Oh, he's the colorist. Okay. So 4 pencilers and a colorist. And a writer. Making the words. Bodies is a very cool story from Vertigo. Basically, you've got these murders or some sort of investigation. This body turns up. It's all mangled. And it keeps happening. The story takes place in 4 different time periods, which is why we have 4 different artists, each one rendering their own timeline. We've got one in the 1890s, one in the 1930s, 40s.
It was the 40s because there was the Blitz.
That's right. It was during the war, yeah. And then one in the present, and then one in the future in like 2050 or something like that. And it's the same body, or the same type of murder keeps happening. The body shows up in the same place, in the same fashion, the same wounds.
Wait, do that again.
This is how the body looks. And it's very cool. You've got, I really like the different feel each time period has. Now, we're getting different artists, but it's all the same writer. And the way he writes the future stuff and the period stuff is really great. It's very relatable. It's a very cool murder mystery. Has a snazzy cover. And I just thought Bodies was a lot of fun this week.
It's very relatable? Yeah. What are you relating to in this book?
To the people who suddenly have to investigate murders. You don't do that in your spare time? You don't solve crimes?
I don't know if Josh was relating to the dead body.
I was relating to Jack the Ripper, and no.
He's a cop on the side. Comic cop.
Coming this fall from NBC.
Streaming on a service near you.
But,
so anyway.
Yeah, Bodies 1. Very cool.
Yeah. Outcast number 2, more bodies. Actually, no bodies in this issue.
No bodies.
This is Robert Kirkman, Outcast by Kirkman and as a CETA, because Outcast is already copywritten by someone else. So, alright, so a couple bits of information on this. This is a lot more talking in this issue than the previous issue, and we really liked the previous issue. Mm-hmm. I still thought this was great. And Kirkman, this really allows Kirkman to shine as a writer. Mm-hmm. I don't read The Walking Dead. I've read, probably the first 6 or 7 or 8 volumes. But the writing in that didn't strike me as especially good. It was more, how can I say this? The characters were interesting. It was more about the situation in The Walking Dead and not necessarily the words that were being spoken by the characters. This book strikes me as being extremely well written, and it's a good example of why Robert Kirkman is as popular as he is as a comic book writer and also now in the entertainment world, acting as producer on the TV show of The Walking Dead. And the second bit of information is that Outcast has now been optioned by Cinemax, so we may end up seeing it late night. No, we may end up seeing an Outcast series on Cinemax. I'd feel a little more comfortable if we had a few more issues in the can before, like, all right, there are 2 issues out, we love it, we're going to make it into a show. Walking Dead was out for, 8 years before they decided, 8 or 9 years?
Well, 8 before they announced it, I don't know. I don't know when they went into talks on it.
But the point of this is that Outcast is a really good read, whether you're a fan of demonic possession, or if you can relate to demonic possession, or any of the characters in these books. I am really enjoying it. It's in my stack because it's one of the best things that I read this week.
It really was. And like you said, it is more of a talking issue, but in a lot of ways, this issue was scarier than the previous issue.
Oh, it was.
All the stuff that, it's horrifying, but it's a real type of horror that happens and is just,
Kurt, he's able to convey what the characters are feeling and what the main character, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but there are scenes in here where he's speaking to his mother and there are flashbacks happening at the same time, and you just think, my God, this guy's life was horrible. Mm-hmm. And that's the sign of a good story. If you can get into the headspace of the characters and relate to them, as Josh often does. So, you're up.
Might be a sociopath. Wait, no, that's when you can't relate to people, right? All right. Next up, we've got a new number 1 from Image. This is Low, written by Rick Remender, created by Rick Remender, with art by Mr. Tocchini. Greg. Hi, Greg. And this is a story of some point in the future, humans, stuff has not gone well for us. We've had to hide beneath the waves from something horrible, and not just snorkel depth, low. We are deep down in the darkness.
We are low.
Yes, we are hiding from something where it's not clear what yet. And this is several generations. These people have been growing up in these underwater fields. And one of the things they use to protect themselves, they have these sort of mechanical dive suits that are also used for defense. And they're genetically keyed to a specific bloodline. So they get passed down through the family. And this shows us the start of one of the current bearers of the suit. And his children are getting to that age where they're going to be inheriting, and he's kind of, it's about destiny and about the burdens that you have to put on people, the choices you have to make when you're bringing them up. And then it gets super awesome. It's setting up this very cool, methodic kind of hero's journey, the young person being exposed to stuff, and then stuff. It's paced in a way that you expect it to be building and then it just, before the issue's over, everything goes to hell.
Oh, it takes a radical, 90-degree turn, and that's one of the great things, that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed it. It was, you didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
But at the same time, again, very easy to get into the headspace of the characters. And, I say this again as a parent, because there are situations in here dealing with parents and children. Good stuff.
Really good. Rick Remender. Still good.
Keep producing cool comics. So, my third pick this week was a bit of a palate cleanser after all of the darkness that we've got. Bodies, we've got, bad stuff happening beneath the seas, we've got demonic possession, And then we have Adventures of Superman number 15, written by one of my favorite writers, Ron Mars, who did wonderful things with Sarah Pazzini, Witchblade, over at Image Comics, and incredible artwork by Evan Doc Shaner. This was just so good. The Adventures of Superman series, from the beginning, is excellent. Was excellent. Still is. It's ending somewhere, and this may have been the last issue. I don't remember. But the previous issue, we got that great Max Landis story, Joker, Superman stuff with artwork by Jock. We've had... Which is coming back into a second printing here in a couple weeks. Yes. But this, if you're a fan of the traditional version of Superman, if you've looked at the New 52 version with his weird armor stuff and it just doesn't work for you, Adventures of Superman is the book for you. If you're looking for a standalone, each issue of this, if I'm not mistaken, has been filled with standalone stories. I believe so, yeah. So it's kind of back to the old school way of doing comics, where it was done in one. You didn't have to know anything going in. You didn't have to continue reading it if you didn't want to. But this one, if you're a fan of this version of Superman, the classic version of Superman, and or if you're a fan of the Iron Giant, I'm not giving a whole lot away, you'll want to pick up Adventures of Superman number 15. It was just such a breath of fresh air, fun to look at, fun to read, just a great all-around comic. And I think it's telling that one of the best comics DC put out this week is in this format. Basically, what's beautiful about Adventures of Superman is, if Jeff Johns is going to write Superman, regular Superman, there has to be long plots going on for 6 or 8 or 12 or 14 issues. There has to be press releases and a big Shazam. But, for this, they just called Ron Mars and said, you have a Superman story you want to tell in 20 pages? And he said, yeah, it's less stress. It lets the creators just do the story they want to do. It doesn't have to be drawn out to fit a schedule. It can just go where it goes. And that's how you get good content, is giving creators the freedom. Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly, we've seen this work with this. It works with Injustice. Mm-hmm. This was a digital first book. Injustice is a digital first book, and it's being told in small chunks digitally, but you get you get the whole story, or you get a bigger piece. And for me, God love you, digital. I will never switch to digital comics. Never. I want to hold a comic in my hand. I want to be able to see, 2-page spreads in one thing without having to move my device around or zoom in or zoom out or whatever. The telling tale with this is that they started digitally, and then they did the print version, and the print version is selling really well. And it's really good. It's good stuff. Our final new number 1 this week, we've got from Dark Horse, Deep Gravity. This is written by Mike Richardson and Gabriel Hartman. It's story by Mike Richardson, and then co-written by Gabriel Hartman and Karina Pacheco. Bechko? There's no extra. Okay. And art by Fernando Baldo. What does the little dash over the O mean? Is that Baldu? I don't. He's not the wolf from the cartoon, though. All right. That's Balto. Sorry, it was a T, not a D. Deep Gravity is a super fun sci-fi adventure. You've got Earth. I was going to say exploiting is probably accurate. Exploiting a planet that's a ways distant from us, but they don't have faster than light travel, so it takes us years. Is it 3 years round trip? 3 years each way. 3 years each way, yeah. So it takes us... So people basically are going into hibernation to go off and do a shift working on this planet. Every day. And they're sending them... Basically, they're cycling. They're currently sending them out. They stay for 18 months, I think. Yeah, I think it's 18 months, so it's 3 years total. Yeah. So it's a year and a half there, a year and a half back. And then they spend 18 months on the planet. And this is about a guy and his significant other... who, I don't know if they're married or if it's his girlfriend or what, but they have a breakup, and she leaves to go off on this planet, to go off on this mission, and basically he follows her. And the next mission he goes, and he's basically derailed his life for 3 or 4 years, to go and try and reconcile with her. And he gets there, and then you see how really cool this planet is. So you've got a horrifying, terrifying atmosphere, weird animals and stuff, and how really fragile life is in space. It's always, stuff like Gravity, or Oceans, wow. Apollo 13, I was going to say Ocean's 11, that was not at all in space. I would watch that, by the way. Ocean's 11 on a space station, yeah. But it's just a small scale, 3 or 4 people at a time in danger. But when you're dealing with traveling light years at a time, they're that far from human help. There's nobody else coming for a year and a half.
what that means to be on this alien planet if something goes wrong. And it's just really compelling and a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has a lot of elements of Avatar, the James Cameron film, and was very enjoyable to read as well. I liked it. Okay, so let's move on to our top 5 list this week. Top 5 Comic-Con announcements, according to us.
Top 5 that we're most excited about.
Yeah, that's a good one. Top 5 Comic-Con announcements that we're most excited about. We'll lead off with number 1, and to me this was the 800-pound gorilla of announcements, and this is Marvel announcing their first 3 Star Wars titles and the creative teams. And not just the titles, but the teams were the clincher for this. So Star Wars starts in January, written by Jason Aaron, who's been doing an amazing job on Thor. He's doing Original Sin now. He's got his own creator-owned stuff, Southern Bastards. Men of Wrath is a new creator-owned imprint or creator-owned book that he'll be publishing later in the year. Anyway, Jason Aaron, I don't know how people find the time to do all this stuff. Jason Aaron writing, John Cassaday providing the artwork for Star Wars. The next month, I believe February, brings us Darth Vader by Kieran Gillen with artwork by Salvador Larroca. Another incredibly solid team. And finally, Princess Leia by, this is in March, Mark Waid with artwork by Terry Dotson, who always draws the pretty ladies. So, what do you think? What are your comments?
I think I don't know if they could have picked a better group for that. Aaron is just great. He's doing really well with team books, which is what I would assume the main Star Wars book is. It has the largest cast, at least by mandate, of the 3 titles. And he has great success with that. Obviously, Kieran Gillen, I think, is a good choice for the villain. He did really well with the Loki stuff in Journey into Mystery. And Darth Vader, obviously, is at the very least, a conflicted protagonist, depending on how they're portraying him, but he's probably the bad guy. And Mark Waid is always, I can't even think of something Mark Waid wrote that I didn't like.
I know, me neither. So I'm psyched
super
for those.
Awesome.
I cannot wait. Another thing, and I think I'm the only one that cares about this, although I've seen posts online in the interwebs that other people are excited, but there is going to be a company crossover, an intercompany crossover between intros between.
No,
or
it's
within.
Intros within, it's like interstate.
Boom Studios and IDW are working together on a Star Trek Planet of the Apes crossover. Sign me up. I'm
right?
in. Yeah, I mean, they showed an image of General Ursus holding a torn gold shirt. I can't wait. And I believe that the Tipton brothers, Scott and David, who've been handling the Star Trek universe for IDW, will be overseeing this, and they've been doing an amazing job with the Star Trek books over there at IDW. Good stuff.
Yeah, super great. Next one up that I was super excited to see was the Agent Carter announcement. So we're getting a companion series to S.H.I.E.L.D. called Agent Carter, set in 1946 after the war. This is Captain America's girlfriend, for those of you who don't know what's going down. And we knew that series was happening, but we got a lot more information. We're going to get it starting it's going to be a mid-season replacement, so it'll be out in January or February of 2015. And they confirmed that it's going to interact with S.H.I.E.L.D. You may have plots or developments or things going from the one show to the other, even though they're separated by decades. And the cool, exciting part to me is that they've got great talent on hand to direct. The Russo brothers, who directed Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier, maybe the most technically perfect Marvel movie so far, are going to be directing episodes 2 and 3, and episode 4 is going to be directed by Joe Johnston, who directed The Rocketeer and Captain America: The First Avenger. So I think it's very encouraging that they've got an actor from the movie headlining. I like that it's a small season. I don't think they have an exact episode count yet, but it's going to be more contained, like HBO does or like the BBC does. Yeah. I think it's a more manageable packet. And if you haven't seen anything about the Agent Carter stuff, highly recommend you check out the short, which is on the Iron Man 3 Blu-ray, I believe, and it's just called Agent Carter. And that'll give you a feel for what it's going to be like, and it's going to be awesome.
All right. I'll stick with the comic announcements. There were really lots of things to discuss, but one of the things that caught my eye, and this was an early announcement, it may have been Wednesday night or even Thursday morning, our time. But IDW, who is doing an amazing job with their artist editions, which are reproductions of original art, so they're extremely oversized. Speaking of which, I stopped at a store, sidebar, in North Carolina when I was on vacation, and they had the Steranko Artist Edition on display, and it is ginormous. It is it's significantly larger than a standard artist edition. Was amazing. Anyway, so 2 new artist editions coming from IDW, I believe in 2015, possibly before the end of the year. Jack Kirby's Miracle Man, and the one that I'm really excited about, Eric Powell's The Goon. And they're gathering the original art for Chinatown. So I love those books. They're so cool. Even people that don't know anything about comics, if they see an artist edition in my office or someplace, they'll look at it, they'll ask questions, I'll explain how comics used to be made, and they're just great conversation pieces. They're very pricey, but I believe that they're worth it. They're super, super cool.
Well, it's the closest a lot of people will get to having original art, especially if on a scale of, I mean, you're talking about Jack Kirby original pages.
Yeah, well, I've looked at buying Eric Powell individual pages, and, the cheapest page is maybe $250 or $300, and it's not even a significant page. So to spend $125 or whatever it is for a complete collection of scans is okay with me.
Very cool. And last up, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and with this cool picture.
Woo!
What do you think about the costume?
I'm fine about the costume. I don't know why the internet's all up in arms, and Lucy Lawless decides she needs to chime in and say, well, I was wearing that costume 20 years ago. She doesn't talk like that, by the way. She's British.
Is she British?
I think she is British.
I thought it was New Zealand.
Oh, she's from New Zealand. That's right. Or whatever. Anyway, that's Xena, right? I've never seen an episode of Xena.
There are actually some very good ones. Well, it's Sam Raimi who did the Spider-Man movies.
And
Speaking, while we're talking about Sam Raimi.
Wait.
Finish Gal Gadot.
No, so Lucy Lawless decides to chime in and say she's disappointed in the outfit because she was wearing it 20 years ago. Well, it looks like Wonder Woman's outfit.
It totally does, yeah.
Maybe your
the coloration is a little different.
Maybe your Xena outfit was inspired by Wonder Woman's outfit. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of the choice of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I'm not going to, swear it off and say it was horrible, because let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's give Zack Snyder and Christopher Nolan, Dave Goyer the benefit of the doubt. But I think that there are other actresses that would have been much wiser choices. And maybe they just couldn't afford an actress of higher quality because they're...
It's AOL Time Warner.
Because they're paying for Ben Affleck, Oscar winner Ben Affleck. And now it's got a huge cast, got a bunch of other people. So they're all right.
Ben Affleck is a huge cast.
We need somebody for Wonder Woman. Who can we afford? How about her? Okay. No offense, Ms. Gadot, but you're a model turned actress. I'm sorry. Anyway, so Sam Raimi, this is like an honorable mention, I think. Yeah.
Sam Raimi has they've announced that he's going to be doing a Last of Us movie. This was the big game on PS3 earlier this year. And I think what's really cool about it, partially, is Sam Raimi's awesome. With the exception of Spider-Man 3, every movie he's made that I've seen I've really liked. And he has a lot of roots in horror, and obviously Last of Us is survival horror. But they didn't approach him. They didn't say, we're working on a movie. Raimi played the game and loved it so much, enjoyed the experience, that he got in touch with the studio and said, I want to make this movie, here's my idea. And they got together on it, which I think is great. A passion project is always going to give you better results than a studio development deal. So, Raimi on Last of Us. Going to be great.
So, Comic-Con 2014 is in the past now. We've got a bunch of other Comic-Cons coming up later in the year. And of course, New York Comic-Con in October, where I imagine we'll see more entertainment-related things. And I may be there. So, I'm excited about that. Josh, you'll be here.
I will be here.
You'll be here, man in the store. But I'll check in with you every once in a while. If you have questions, comments, what did you think of Comic-Con? Any announcements that were of interest to you? What books are you reading? And we will get around to a Google Hangout. I meant to try and get something firmed up as far as a date before we shot this episode, but that just didn't happen. So by next episode, hopefully we'll have a date and time for our first ever Alter Ego Comics Google Hangout. So stay tuned. And thanks always for watching.